Good morning, everyone. My name is Georgia Fleischer, and this is the first meeting of this year, 2022. Happy New Year, everyone. I'm so happy to see we have 44 people. I think that's a record. Okay, I'm going to introduce our wonderful speaker. Alison Freeman, PhD, is a clinical psychologist who works half-time at California State University at Northridge with hearing, hard of hearing, and deaf students. She has had a severe hearing loss since early childhood, was orally trained, and is a longtime member of HLAA. Dr. Freeman has developed mental health service programs in several counties and did her postdoctorate fellowship at UC San Francisco Center on Deafness. She also has a private practice providing therapy, assessment, consultation, and expert witness services. Dr. Freeman is a young at heart and passionate about her work as a psychologist, and is honored to be a role model for others, as she wished that she had as a child. Welcome, Dr. Freeman.
Thank you, Georgia. A couple of things before I get started. Number one, is there anybody here that needs sign language? Because I can sign during the presentation if necessary. So if you put into the chat, I'll be glad to do that. Otherwise, we can just depend on the captioning. Okay, I have to find the chat myself. Okay, here we go. Okay, where's the chat? Okay, and secondly, I just want to give a shout out to this chapter. This chapter is amazing. And even though I'm not able to go, I talk about the chapter all the time. So I just want to give a shout out to the steering committee, to the tireless energy, and I'm just so impressed. And I think this is actually one of the best chapters, if I dare say so, in the country. So thank you again. So I guess I should go ahead, Tim, and just start sharing my screen. Is that right? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So, but actually, before I do that, I want this to be casual, okay? I want you to get something out of today's meeting. This is going to be different than my other presentations, okay? So if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the chat as we all navigate the technology of trying to get the speaker, the gallery view, the chat, all that, okay? And if I haven't gotten to your question, there will be a time. But I really want to make this more personal so that you're getting something out of it, okay? So with that, would love, but I can do captain, okay. Oh, okay. I'm going back and forth from reading, and I think we're all doing a great job with the technology. Okay. So, here we go. Okay. So the title of my presentation is Coping with Hearing Loss and Taking Care of Our Mental Health. And I specifically say our mental health because what I'm going to share with you today are things I do for myself, even though I have been doing this for many years, okay? And it's important that we all support one another as we do in taking care of ourselves. Especially now with the pandemic, it's very, very hard to find counselors and therapists. And for the first time in my 35 years of career, I'm having to turn away people. So it's really important that we find places where we can support each other during this pandemic, okay? So, whoops. Okay. So, I really like this quote. And this was a quote by one of our most important psychologists in the field of deafness, who helped normalize that deafness and hearing loss was not the disability. The real disability is communication, as we all know. So when we talk to people who all want to know about how much do we hear, how much do we understand, the medical aspect, we need to focus on the psychological aspect of the communication issue, okay? So this communication disability leads, I just changed my, okay, here we go, okay. Can people see my moving the gallery around, or are you only seeing the screen? Okay, I'm just concerned about blocking because I'm trying to use the gallery view. Okay, okay, all right, okay. So this lack of communication, as most of us have experienced, is that leads to anxiety, constant stress, depression, frustration, social withdrawal, and more. Isolation, okay? And what I find frustrating as a psychologist is that when people come to see me and they've seen other people, other therapists, their anxiety and stress and depression and frustration are all pathologized. And what I mean by that is that they make it sound like something's very seriously wrong rather than something that can be easily fixed, easily addressed. In fact, last Friday, I just did a webinar teaching therapists how to deal with people with disabilities, including hearing loss. And I'm going to be doing the same thing later on this year. It's really amazing to me how many therapists are struggling with how to deal with people with hearing loss. And so I keep focusing on the fact that it is a social communication issue. It's not a medical issue, okay? So, for me, stressed, you know, I think about what is the Mad magazine of the 60s and the 70s, you know, and one of the reasons why I used that title is because I think a lot of us tend to not give enough, tend to not take our stress seriously enough. I know for myself, these are the things that are really, really stressful, okay? Listening to music. I know that with my hearing loss, it changed. It's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I used to be a dancer. And so I loved music, even though I could never understand the lyrics of what the music was about. And now what's happening is I'm actually missing out on some of the instrumentation. So with that, there's a sense of loss because I can't listen to music like I used to. And that's something that we need to continually be aware of, is accepting the fact that we have lost something, even for those of us who have been hard of hearing for a very long time, okay? And the more we can look at that, the more we can accept that, okay, we need to move on rather than to continue fighting it, okay? Participating in business meetings, family gatherings, telephone, going to restaurants, going to plays, movies, and events, and it's so exhausting. So I would like to invite people in the chat box. If you don't experience any of these, put it in the chat box. So click at the very top. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm seeing some. Okay. I'm seeing some things in the chat box that some people are having a hard time to exit full screen. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay. All right. So stress is here to stay. What's really important is that so much of the time we hear about how do you get rid of stress? How do you get rid of stress? Okay. The reality is we can't get rid of stress. And stress is not only negative, it's also positive. And I like this chart because if you look at it, when we don't have enough stress, we're bored. When we have too much stress, we're burned out. So our goal in dealing with developing our own stress management plan is to figure out what is best for us. And that is a continual process, figuring out how much is too little, how much is too much. Now, one of the things that there's a couple of really famous scales that people use to identify the stress, okay? And I'm sure we've all seen them. And what is not on there is the amount of stress that you have as a result of hearing loss. And that's something you have to continually put in to your plan. And for myself, one of the things that I struggle with is that compared to my friends and compared to my colleagues, I try to keep up with their level of achievement. Okay? And what I keep forgetting is that for me, I get more exhausted more quickly than they do. I have to take more time for myself to kind of regenerate. And that was one of the things that really was one of my greatest struggles when I was younger. That I was constantly comparing myself and saying, I'm not good enough because I couldn't do as much as other people, okay? And so part of that process is accepting that just because you get tired more easily and just because you get exhausted doesn't devalue your personality or your performance. And a big part of this is learning to manage it better and sharpening our assertiveness skills, okay? And what I mean by that is the more we can assert what we need, the less we're going to feel exhausted with the chronic tension of trying to figure out what we need. I don't know if that makes sense, okay? And what I really mean is that putting on your educator's hat, okay? I have personally found that my educator's hat, putting my hat is one of my best coping strategies. And when I don't do that, my stress goes up. I'm going to stop here for a minute just to see if are there any questions. I'm having a hard time seeing everything at once. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Are there any questions so far? And if so, please put them in the chat box because I can't see the gallery view.
Allison,
yes.
there's a question from Elise Schwartz. And she says she has a balance act that either is migraines or not depending on noise, stress, involvement. Does that resonate with you?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the question is. Is the question trying to figure out if it's migraines or related to noise? Is that the question?
It looks like that. Maybe Eloise, if you want to, yes, she said yes.
Okay.
That's
yeah,
okay.
You know, migraines are definitely a product of too much stress, okay? And sometimes what's important is to not only identify the source of stress, but more importantly, what are you going to do about it? Oh, okay. Question. You said something about how it's time to move on rather than to continue fighting. How do you determine when you've reached that point and move on? I'm trying to remember what I just said about that. Let me clarify that. I personally never stop fighting, but instead of using the word fighting, I like to think about, I never stop educating and putting out that information, what I need. So let me know if that answers your question. Okay. All right. So, because hearing loss is an invisible disability, okay? It's like the invisibility cloak, okay? We really need to make it more visible. And we make it more visible by assuming an educator's hat, okay? Let me share with you a couple personal experiences, and I'm sure we all have had them, okay? So I've been hard of hearing since I was, very young. My parents didn't discover until I was 3 years old, when at Christmas time, they gave me a dog buggy, and I had no idea what it was. And that's when they took me in to see a doctor and realized that really I wasn't getting information because of my hearing loss, but they thought in those days, as some of us can relate, that I was mentally challenged. Okay. So advanced, 15 years, I'm a teenager, I'm dating, okay? I don't tell anybody that I'm hard of hearing. My goal in life was to pass as much as possible pretending I was like a hearing person until I got into trouble. And I got into trouble when one time I was traveling on my own with my backpack in Europe with my best friend, and we're walking and we meet up with some guys, and they asked me a question. I had no idea what they say to me. And what happens is that they start to grab me, okay? And my friend starts screaming and scares them off, okay? And then during that same trip, I was checking out of a hostel, like a hotel, and dealing with the money, and the manager of the hostel starts screaming at me and said, "What's wrong with you? Are you deaf and dumb?" Okay? I didn't know that, but my friend comes walking because she was right next, and she starts yelling at the man. As a matter of fact, she is deaf, but she's not dumb. And that person turned the color crimson red with this. So at that point, about 19, 20, 21, I started to realize that I didn't like being perceived as being stupid. And so I started to practice being assertive because I was, and it was scary because I was very passive. I was a good little girl. Now, people who know me now laugh at that. You? No. But I was very, very quiet and passive. So what I learned is that I need to take responsibility. It's not other people's responsibility to figure out how to communicate with me. Okay? And so when I put on my educator's hat, I keep some basic assumptions about how to communicate. And the first one is that most people don't know how to communicate with me, because I do sound somewhat normal. Secondly, I find that most people are embarrassed about asking me how to communicate with me. And they think they should know how to communicate with me, which is why they don't ask questions. Because they've been taught as children, don't stare, don't ask questions. That's too personal. How many of you have had that experience? Okay. Okay. So my job is to let them know that it's okay for them to ask me questions. Yes, I noticed that too. Lately these days, they don't bother to ask. It's very disheartening. Yes. Yeah, it's very disheartening. Yes. And I find that over the years, it's never gotten less. I still have to do all this. And when I forget to think about these assumptions, I get hurt. Okay. So, you know, I learned this because about 5 years after I graduated college, I was part of a fantastic program. I wish every school had it. And it was a program called Footsteps. And it was a program started by a teacher that was a 4-week program, 1 week long of one specific disability. And so I was a speaker for about 10 years to children in elementary school. And one of the things I loved about these children is that they would ask me questions that adults would never ask me. They would ask me questions like, why do you talk so funny? Or they would ask me, can you drive a car? You know, or they would ask me, can you see? Okay, okay, it's a very odd question, but if you think about it, most adults have the same question, but they're not gonna ask. In fact, there's a wonderful video, if you're interested, called Awkward, A-W-K-W-A-R-D. And it's about people with different disabilities who are either deaf or blind or in a wheelchair. And believe it or not, when someone meets a blind person, they start yelling at the blind person. Can you understand me? I know, it's crazy, it doesn't make sense, right? Right? And then there's another scene in that where there's a deaf person coming in and two other people in a business meeting, and they say, he is deaf, but he's okay. And the deaf person says, I'm deaf, but I'm not blind. Okay? Okay, okay, yeah, absolutely. And I think it's okay to challenge people about the assumptions as long as we do it in a sensitive way. So one of the things I do with every single student that comes in and client that comes in who is hearing, I will say, before we get started, let me just tell you a little bit about me. And actually, it's easier with the pandemic because I use Google Meet, which has captioning. And so I will explain to them, I have a hearing loss. What that means is I lip read and I do hear. If you don't understand me, please let me know. I'm not shy, and vice versa. And if you feel like you want to see someone else, let me know. And I find that when I do that, I'm really surprised that, not surprised, but they feel much more relaxed about, oh God, I don't have to ask you any questions. And in fact, it's really funny because there have been a couple of students who have very, very thick accents and I can't understand them. And I was hoping that they would ask to be transferred to another therapist, and they wouldn't. And so I actually had to talk to them about, I'm having a hard time understanding you. But what happened was they said, well, other people have a hard time understanding me as well. So that was a real good process for both of us to talk about how do we communicate better. I'm just taking a look at the time here. Okay, let's see. Okay, all right. Okay. So obviously there's more than one way to deal with stress, okay? But the basic foundation is becoming aware and becoming aware of what we can and cannot control, right? And the more we take charge, such as being assertive, the better we feel, okay? So I like to think of the ways of handling stress as being, what can we deal with directly and actively? But if we can't deal with something directly, what can we do indirectly? And then the third way is passive. So let me give you some examples of this. So let's say I have a boss, or let's say I have a family member who isn't communicating, who's constantly covering their mouth, and I can understand them. So I can directly ask that person. That's something I can control, okay? But let's say something that I can't control, where I have a boss that no matter how many times I talk to that boss about what I need and I'm just giving up, then I will find an active approach, such as exercise, such as doing other things that help me reduce the stress. And then there's the one that's passive. And being passive doesn't always mean that it's negative, but it's like, for example, I've had a horrible day, I'm just gonna go have a glass of wine and sit in front of the TV, okay? But the important thing is to be aware of what it is you're doing, because if you're in one category too much, then you need to know whether or not you need to change that. So if you're drinking only and not doing anything else, being passive is gonna probably be the least effective. The least effective. I noticed the caption being off. Okay. So I like to think of the 3 A's. Okay. So before I thought about these things, I felt like a victim sometimes when I go somewhere, and I just felt like a victim and go, oh God, it's just so hard, it's just so stressful, and I started feeling sorry for myself. And then I realized, wait a minute, I have some choices here. And the choices are, I can either avoid the situation altogether, I can find an alternative to this situation, or I can accept it. So, example, let's say my friends invite me to see a movie, okay? And the movie I know is not captioned. So I can choose to ask that person, you know what? That movie's not captioned. Can we find a location where it might be captioned? Or if not, find another movie that is captioned. And let's say there's no other place where it's captioned, then I can choose to say, I'd rather not. It's too frustrating for me to go to the movie when I can't understand what's going on. Or let's say the movie is part of a big group of people and I don't want to miss out on that social piece. So I can choose to accept it. Okay? So another example, and I'm dealing with this now, is I have a family, extended family, and if it's someone's birthday party, okay, so let's say it's my niece's birthday party, and she really loves this restaurant, it's really noisy. So I can choose, I'm not going to ask her for an alternative restaurant because it's her birthday, but I can either choose not to go, or I can choose to just accept it and know that I'm doing it because it's her birthday. Okay, so each one of these has, I'm going to use them sometimes yes, sometimes no, but at least I don't feel like a victim like I used to. Let's see, I think I see something in the chat. Let's see, here we go. Okay, okay. So I want for you, okay, yeah. So these are some examples, and I want you to give me some other examples in the chat box. Restaurants, movies, birthdays, professional meetings, family gatherings, being in water, any others that people can think of? Feel free to put in the chat box. Block party outdoors, okay. School, weddings, funerals. Absolutely. Right, okay, yeah. And then Jackie said you could, back to the 3 options, you can go for a short time and then leave. Excellent, right. Okay. Large rooms with high ceilings, okay, good. The beach, okay. Yeah, is the beach because of the wind factor or because of what, Sandy? I'm curious about that.
I mean, I love the beach. I adore the beach. I love being at the ocean. But between the wind and the sand, and maybe I have a little balance issue once in a while, I have to take hiking sticks and I have to cover up. I have to, you know, protect myself from the sun because I'm white. So it's all complicated. And then you put a hat on and then I'm turning into a whiner. Anyway.
Right, no, I finally found some earmuffs that doesn't affect my hearing loss. Finally. I can't tell you what they are because I have about 3 of them. But if you want, write to me and I can retrace it. But I love it because I have the same problem with the wind, especially in the afternoon when the wind picked up at the beach. Yeah, absolutely.
Did you say ear muffs?
Earmuffs.
Ear muffs.
The old-fashioned earmuff with the band, okay? Yeah. And the ones that I don't have them here right now. They look like rabbit fur. They're not rabbit fur, but they're super soft and they're not tight and they let the sound in.
Oh.
So when I go walking, I say to people, don't make fun of me. I'm going to wear my earmuffs.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in for a second. The captioning is good, but not great. So it does do some strange things. But yeah, those ear muffs, M-U-F, and I like those, Alison. I haven't worn them since I lived in New York, but they do a great job. But yeah, some of the captions are really going sideways. So, okay.
You're picking up on a really good point, and that is each one of us have a different hearing loss. So you're going to, for example, be more sensitive to the wind. You might be more sensitive to actual sound. Like I think it was Jackie that said that. I don't remember where it was, you know. And one of the things I've learned, especially with the meetings here, is taking apps so that you can understand what people are saying. So when I go to a restaurant, I would take an app on my phone. Okay, I'm just responding to, you know, people. Do you choose to go to these frustrating places or not? I think the point I'm making is that when we have hearing loss, there is not going to be any perfect solution. And in fact, one of the most valuable things I learned from a therapist of mine is I'm a perfectionist. We don't have any of those here, right? No. Okay. And so I would get mad every day if the day wasn't perfect. So, I have a list and 10 things and I didn't get all 10 things done and I'll get mad at myself. Okay. Or I expect myself to be super calm all day long. And this one therapist said to me, I want you to think about it differently. I want you to wake up in the morning and expect at least one thing to go wrong. At least one thing that's going to go wrong a day. And that helped because it lowered my expectation that I was going to have a perfect day. So I used to go to the audiologist who would not let me record the appointment. Oh, that's interesting. So that's not always an option unless you do it without asking. That is unbelievable. That's an ADA issue. And I would let that audiologist know. I'm not sure why you want to let me record the appointment, but you're not allowing me equal access to communication. Yeah, okay. So what I want you to do, go ahead, Sandy, I can see your hand up, yeah?
I just want to address the question from Sarah Weimer. It's a follow-up question. You said it was time to move on instead of continue fighting in reference to your dancing and having difficulties following the music. So how did you decide to move on? And I didn't understand that myself, but perhaps you could clear that up for us, Alison.
Sure. I think the question requires creativity, okay? So I was a dancer, and what I would do is I would sit down with the old-fashioned tape recorders and I have somebody write down the lyrics for me, okay? And then when my hearing got to be so bad, I would sit down and I would actually write out the counts with someone's help. When that didn't work, I stopped doing dance and I started incorporating sign language into my dance. Okay? So when I say move on, what I mean is, and Richard Einhorn talked about this as well as, I can't remember who the other person is. Learning to appreciate music as it is now without wishing that you could hear like you used to. So that's what I mean by moving on. I don't mean forgetting it, but finding a way to be creative about your music. And I know I can see some of you who are music lovers, okay? Rather than give up on it, finding a way to appreciate it. Maybe putting your hand on the speaker. Maybe figuring out the Bluetooth audio, okay? I didn't know until recently that I could listen to my music through Bluetooth. Okay, so I think the takeaway from all this is that never stop looking, never stop researching, never stop being curious about if there are other avenues, but being able to do so and you get better without grieving all the time. Does that make sense? There's another question. Oh yeah, okay. Otter or Google. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I have found quite a few. There's Big Note. Do people know about Big Note? I will use on the iPhone that you can use your notes, which is a yellow thing, and turn on the microphone and it would save it. I actually like that better than auto. Okay. If other people have other apps, please put them in the chat box so you can share them. Okay. There's also live transcribe for Android phones. And I love that one. That was my favorite. But when I got my own phone, I couldn't use it anymore. Okay. Okay. So lip reading, that's a big one. Something I tell people is, you know what? I noticed that you have a hard time forgetting, but please understand that when you forget that I lip read, our communication is not going to be great. And you're going to be frustrated and I'm going to be frustrated. Yeah. And you know, this is what I mean. It says here, I've even done the 2-finger gesturing, look at me, you know. And I think what people are forgetting is it's not visible. Now, one of our co-founders with Rocky Stone would wear bright red hearing aids and a bright red cord to remind people that it was hard of hearing. So maybe you have to do something creative, you know, or if somebody refuses to look at you, turn around. I don't understand you. Yesterday, I had something really funny happen to me. I was talking to another therapist in my yoga class, and all of us had to wear a mask, and I was wearing a mask, and she wasn't. And she said to me, "How are you understanding me?" And then she laughed, said, "Oh my God, you're wearing a mask, but I'm not, so you can lip read me." But she forgot. Okay. Okay, yeah, okay. All right, so now, as far as masks go, and I know we talk about this all the time, okay? This is my favorite mask I give to people. This is called the bend-shaped mask. Do people know about this? Okay, now, the other mask I have has a window only this big. There's about 3 of them. If you have a problem, buy a bunch of these masks and you give them out to people that you want to communicate. Okay? This happens to be the most expensive, but I do carry these for people I talk to frequently. When I go to the doctor's offices and they are the worst offenders, they will not use a mask because of COVID, and I have to fight. So if you have a doctor's appointment, be sure to let them know ahead of time, not just once, not just twice, sometimes 3 times. Do you have an interpreter? Do you have a clear face shield? Can I bring you a mask? Okay, I live near UCLA and they are the worst. Okay. All right. Let me just see how we're doing. How are we doing it? Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Occasionally, I find it useful to tell someone I'm unable to do what they suggest. Example, telephone via voice because it will frustrate me and really annoy them. People appear to appreciate the joke, but also perceive it as a positive suggestion. Okay. Okay. Sarah said, I wanted to use the recording app on my phone. I couldn't bring my wife with me to clarify some things I didn't understand, so I wanted to record the appointment so I didn't miss anything important. My wife goes too much to the appointments as a backup. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Mo, you know, I hope you educate the audiologist. Okay. See, what we don't realize is the audiologists don't get any training on the psychological aspect of hearing loss. None of them. Absolutely. Yeah. I have a couple of audiologists in my practice. And the reason why is because they are slammed with appointments all day long for hearing aids. They don't have time to talk about the psychological aspect of hearing loss. They don't know about these apps. I'm stunned. Absolutely. Okay. Okay. So I want you to get some paper, and just for a couple of minutes, I want you to write down what are the most stressful to the least stressful sources of stress that you have. So grab some paper and pencil or pen or writing, and to just take a few moments to maybe even close your eyes and think about what are the worst situation to the least stressful situation. And I'll give you a couple of minutes.
Alison, I missed the assignment. What are you asking us to do?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Let me say it again.
No.
So I want you to write down, think about what situations are the most stressful to the least stressful.
Okay.
Okay. Really, what I want you to be thinking about is what situation are you more in control of versus those that you are not. That's really what I'm looking at.
Okay, thanks.
So which situations are most stressful to least stressful? Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. And feel free to put them in the chat box. And when you think about these, think about what approach you would use. In terms of, would you avoid it? Could you ask for an alternative? Or would you just accept it? Okay. How are people doing? Do people want any more time? I have a hard time because I can't see what people are doing. Need more time? No? Raise your hand if you're okay. 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 So I want you to take a look at your list, and I want you to think of one thing that you could do to add that you don't already do. So what I'm seeing here, it seems like the most stressful part or more than one person is speaking, and absolutely. Right? Okay. That requires education. that requires the educator's cap. And it requires you to be out there and bold, and it can be embarrassing. But the flip side of it is, if it's a work environment, you can say, I know it's hard for people to remember, but please understand that I'm not going to be effective if I don't know what everybody is saying. I don't know if what people are saying, not dying. Captioning was off on that one. Okay. Okay. So when I say which approach would you use, direct or indirect, okay, I want to talk about something that I am an avid believer in, okay? And that is that when we can't confront something directly, it's really important to find other stress management strategies. And one of the best is exercise. Exercise, 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 okay? I know that when I'm talking mostly to an older audience, but one of the things that I was stunned about when at the university is that when a student comes in and they're stressed out, one of the first questions we ask is, what do you do for exercise? And they look at me like, why do you care? You're a psychologist, right? And they often say, well, I stopped doing exercise when I came to college. Mistake, okay? And there's actually research studies to show that exercise can be as effective as talk therapy. So what they did, if you're interested, I can show you some of the studies, but it's really interesting, okay? That oftentimes with those students who stop exercising, once they start exercising again, they don't have to come in anymore. Funny, okay? Same thing with me. If I stop my dancing, if I stop my exercise, my depression starts going up again, okay? And that's an indirect way of dealing with the stress, okay? So be sure to exercise and to do it at least 3 or 4 times a week. It could include yoga, it could include running, and to educate yourself about the benefits of different kinds of exercise. Okay? Okay. So I'm going to also talk about one of my very favorite things to do. Do we have time to do this? Okay. This is a very quick, this can be very, very quick. Okay? Now, most of us know that we all have to breathe, okay? But most of us don't know the benefit of deep breathing. And this is a great, I'm going to see if I can do it without losing you. I don't know if I can do it. Let's see. I'm going to stop sharing because I want to see if I can, whoops. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Did I screw up here? Let's see. Give me a minute because I didn't. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to start sharing my screen again. Here we go. This is one of many things I like to use. How come I can't change this? Okay.
A very strange day is coming to America. In short, a massive and surprising new transition to
okay. Before I show you this, deep breathing is a very personal experience, okay? So this is a great graphic to show you to inhale deeply and exhale. Inhale and exhale. And when I show this, there's a setting that when you do this on your own, you will be able to click onto the settings and you can vary the playback speed. Okay? So if you find that this is too fast and you're hyperventilating, that defeats the purpose. Conversely, if you find that it's too slow, you can make it a little bit faster. I just want to point that out, okay? So let's go back to this. Oops. How was that for people? Okay. Whoops, what did I do? Okay, so I'm going to share the screen again. Let's see, what did I do? Here we go. Okay. Can people see my screen again? Whoops. Let's see. I can't hear people and I'm not knowing why. Can people say something? Huh.
We're not
Oh yeah, here we go. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay. I think what happened was I turned off the volume on the video. So anyway, how was that for people? I know it's just a brief clip. Okay. That website is called Do Nothing for 10 Minutes. And it's from the School of Self. There's a lot of them. I happen to like that one. Whoops. Oh, here we go. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. I don't know why I can't see people. Technologically, I'm challenged too. Okay. Can people see the breathing? Oh no.
No, we're just seeing you right now.
Oh, okay. So let me stop the screen share. Wow, that's weird. Now can you see it? Okay, yeah, okay. So if you want to take a screenshot that is the actual website for the breathing, okay? Okay. So let's kind of wrap up and then have time for questions. So in summary, wear your educator's hat, except that you're gonna have to wear it for the rest of your life. It never gets easier. Actually, it gets easier, but you never stop wearing it. 2, give yourself time to become more and more assertive about what you need. Identify what you can control with the 3 A's. Directly or indirectly, practice your breathing and your exercise. And then, of course, continue to support one another. So with that, I'm gonna, if there's any questions, let's see, how do I, yeah. If I understand correctly, Tim said that this is gonna be up for recording, so you can look at it later. And if you want, you can also write to me and I'll send it to you. Okay? So, the journey, let's see, it's not letting me do it, okay. Okay. So the journey of accepting one's hearing loss is a gradual and continual process, no matter how long you've had hearing loss. Okay? And then if you would like me to send you a copy, let me know. This is my contact information. Or of course you can talk to the chapter. So are there any questions, comments? Oh, I see some things in the chat box. Let's see, whoops. Oh, okay. Thank you, Tim, for putting it in the. Okay. Okay, so are there any questions? Oh, okay. I see Jackie had your hand up. Yes? Oh, wait, let me stop. Let me.
I just wanted to kind of, when everybody was saying about, you know, the stresses of what is hard and stuff. I know not everybody has a cochlear, but if people have like a hearing aid, a Baha cochlear through the cochlear company itself, they actually have an accessory that is a microphone. I've only had hearing loss this month. It's 2 years. The microphone is a little expensive, so I don't know if other brands are cheaper, but the cochlear microphone that Bluetooth to your actual hearing aid, Baha cochlear implant, it has been one of the things that has really lessened my stress over going to restaurants. Theaters are still hard unless they're looped. I try and manage, like we go to Pantages a lot. They're looped, but Dolby Theater is not. But because I have a Casno and I have a nucleus, I can just put the microphone over and let it sit on my cochlear microphone and I can hear. But insurance also will pay. I don't know if they pay for accessories through cochlear, but you can see if your insurance or your flex spending, if you have that, will pay for it. But I can honestly say it is a huge, huge game changer in the stress of going to restaurants, doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, like anything. Because one thing that it does do when you have that microphone on, it kind of lessens, it like shuts down that background noise. So if I I do try and avoid some things, but with this microphone, it lets me do so much more, especially I'm a latent deaf person, and I've been hearing 46 years. And then in the last 2, I haven't. So it was very hard to adapt and very stressful. But this microphone, if you guys can get it. It seriously is a game changer because it lessens the background noise. You can stick it on the table even, and you can hear the people at the table, even if it's like 4 or 5 people. You just move that microphone. And I also am very vocal about on the phone right off the bat. I say, I'm deaf. I have a cochlear. You've got to speak slow. I'm a fast talker. I always have been. So I get fast talkers. I have to slow myself down sometimes. So I just wanted to throw it out there to all you guys that if you do have a hearing device from Cochlear company itself, check the accessory and see if you can get the microphone that Bluetooth into your Android or iPhone. It seriously makes a huge difference and lessens the stress, especially at doctor's appointments.
Can you put it in the chat box again? Put that information in the chat box again for people. Okay, so please look at the chat box. There's a lot of information there. Okay.
I just wanted to say something else and to piggyback on what Jackie said before we go. Earlier, you said that you had just recently kind of found out that you could listen to music using your Bluetooth and, and so I do think that it is important. I have been for a while and then with the loops, but I really urge everyone to explore as much technology as possible, even the technology that you already have. If you have a smartphone, particularly an iPhone, even an Android, there are so many features right on your phone that can probably change your world. Sometimes your audiologist is keenly aware of these things, and sometimes they have not a clue. So it is really important to look into the technology you already have, the things that work with your hearing aids. If you've purchased a reasonable hearing aid within the last 5 years, there's a lot of things that can be done with your phone, between Bluetooth, even what Jackie was talking about on my phone using my Oticon hearing aid, the app that goes with it, just changing the volume and addressing it has made a world of a difference in the restaurants. I was complaining not long ago. I went into a restaurant and I was like, oh my God, it's just too noisy in here. The music is playing this and that. And then when I finally calmed down, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, this is not a good seat. This is not I was freaking out. And then when I finally calmed down, got my phone out, went to my app and lowered the volume in both ears to a level that just took almost all that background noise out and made conversation very doable. And I was, and it was just such a simple thing that I had in my possession and in my power. And so just that, using your Bluetooth, using your Listen Live and using your Transcribe, it really does make a difference. And so really take the time to learn about the devices that you already have and use them to the fullest.
Yeah. And also check out Roger Pen. I haven't used it, but I know several people love it. Yeah, again, keep exploring, checking it out. So thank you for bringing that up, Wendy. Yeah, okay.
So you guys, this is what it looks like.
Oh, okay.
This is what it looks like. And the funny thing is now when I go to PT or any doctor's appointments, I walk in and they go like this. like they automatically are like, where, like, give me your microphone so I can like talk to you. And even at restaurants, everybody's like, where's your microphone? So, and it has a little clip. Oops. It has a little clip that just goes on. The one thing is you have to remember to get it back, because sometimes I walked out and I was like, oh crap, I got it. So you just like, the microphone is right here on the top of it. And you can just like pre-hook and wear it and stuff. So it truly is a game changer. And I put in the chat, it's through a popular company. So if you go on, you got to go to popular shop. And if you're through that, it tells you who the compatibility is through. This has always been compatible with my lowest level Baja, any of the other Bajas, and my Populars and my Kanzo. So look into it. It's just like Wendy said, it's a game changer. It makes it less stressful.
Thank you. And yes, technology has made our lives so much easier, and we still have stress. I think that's what we have to recognize. I can't even imagine a world without the technology, but I grew up in a world without the technology. Okay. Now I get frustrated because of technology. So, yeah. All right. So thank you all for the comment. And okay. Okay. Yeah, so somebody is asking about tinnitus. Tinnitus is really aggravating. A lot of it is stress related. There is no cure for tinnitus. A lot of it is about managing it. And I personally find my hearing aids mask my tinnitus. When my hearing aids are off, I have tinnitus. I do know, I know that the chapter has had somebody a year ago, 2 years ago, there are masking devices for the tinnitus, as well as programs and apps on your hearing aid for tinnitus. There's actually an American Tinnitus Association as well. They used to meet at UCLA pre-COVID. So again, Googling, asking for resources, and does anybody have anything to add? Sandy?
That's exactly how my hearing loss started many years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was maddening. And I found that the best approach is really tuning it out and not giving it the attention and power. Because I found if I concentrated on it and I went, oh, this is driving me crazy, it only got worse. It just got worse. And I don't know if that works for everybody, but that certainly works for me. And I think, yes, I think meditation too, Mark, is good. But I do know that there are a lot of promises out there in the market. People are trying to monetize tinnitus, relief. So just be careful, because you have to really use common sense and not be taken advantage of. So I would maybe read all you can about it, and look at some natural ways to relieve it. I sent for something from Utah, some pills. I still can't believe I did that, but I did it. It didn't work. Of course it didn't work. It's like, I don't think a pill is going to get rid of tinnitus, not in 2022. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Yeah. I agree with you, Sandy. Thank you for saying that, because I think that people do want to monetize it. I remember listening to one person saying, try to make friends with your tinnitus. And sometimes that works for me. Try to listen to the tinnitus as a form of music. That's not the right word, but the other thing I found is that when I'm distracted, when I'm busy, it doesn't bother me. So again, do your research. Don't buy these expensive promises, and even Art magazine, you know. There is some, I think the bottom line, aside from everything we're talking about, is that everybody's body is very different, okay? I found some supplements that work for me, but not necessarily for someone else. And one of the things that I heard an ENT, he believed that if you have too much sodium in your diet, the tinnitus goes up. And I have found that to be true with some people. So he even supported taking a glass of water, putting a lot of starch in it, pay attention to tinnitus, you drink it, and if it's worse, then you know that sodium is the culprit. Okay? Cheap, doesn't cost you anything. But again, do your research. So, okay. Well, thank you again, everybody. It's a wonderful group. And it's wonderful to see so many people. Okay?